I'm Leah B. Jackson. This is pro gamer Greg Fields, or as I like to call him, Idra. And today we're going to be showing off the best way to play as Kerrigan in Heroes of the Storm. Ready to get to it?
Yep, let's go.
All right. Here we are in try mode with Kerrigan. Why don't you tell us about her and her abilities?
Okay, she is labeled as an assassin, but she's actually much better as a tanky teamfight initiator CC bot kind of hero. She's very powerful as that. I honestly think the assassin label is kind of a misnomer because they expect her Ravage to be an execute, but it really isn't. We'll talk more about that later, but she will be played very tanky and very much so focused on her abilities. Her passive is what makes her so tanky. It's called Assimilation, and she gains shields equal to 10% of her attack damage and 20% of ability damage dealt at any given time. And that actually, she deals quite a bit of damage, so that ends up making her very hard to kill once she starts stacking up that shield. So that's going to be very important. We're going to focus a lot on that. Her active abilities, her Q is called Ravage, and that's just a targeted leap. So you can see it's a very large range, so it's great for initiation. You just target it at them, they do a lot. It does some damage, it puts you right up close next to them. Your W is going to be an AoE stun, but it is a skill shot, so you have to place it on the ground and hope you catch them. And he's running away right now, so that makes it harder. And there. And there you'll see it does a lot of damage. It's a pretty big AoE, and it is a stun, which is always very powerful. And the other thing is that it synergizes very well with her E, which is actually a pull. It's called Primal Gasp, and what it does is it pulls everyone in this AoE in close to her after a little bit of a delay. So what you're going to do is you're going to Q in. I'm going to wait for the E to come off cooldown. You're going to Q into someone, and you're going to place a stun, and then you're going to E them into the stun, and that's your combo. And it does an absurd amount of damage. It's an absurd amount of lockdown. Just very powerful in general. And you'll see just how much shield I built up. That's almost as much as my HP, just in that one little combo. So the shield is absurdly powerful. Then her ultimate is Maelstrom. It does a decent amount of damage per second, but the big thing is that damage from that also goes to your shield, so this is just more passive tankiness and damage at the same time. So you just pop it, you see that's the AoE indicator, then you run in, you do your little combo, and you kill people. So very powerful, very multifaceted hero in Kerrigan.
Sweet, let's take a look at her talents and see how we should build her out.
So for Kerrigan, at the level 1 talent, there's a couple of good options here, but I think personally by far the best is Sweeping Grasp, and this has become the most popular. It vastly increases the range of your Primal Grasp. It says 20%. I'm not sure what exactly they're measuring with that, if it's radius or the arc of it or whatever, but whatever it is a very big practical increase to the range of your grasp, which is your main initiation. It's also great for team fights. That should definitely be your focus. The other talents are kind of lackluster compared to it. That the level 4 talent, this is actually a pretty mediocre tier for a hero with as many strong suits as Kerrigan. You think they focus a lot on buffing up a lot of those, but this is really just kind of a wasted tier in my opinion. Focused attack is generally what I go for just because it gives you a little bit of extra damage. The more damage you have, the more shields you have, and everything else is just kind of unimpressive. Some people will get poison. It's good early game for helping to secure kills. It doesn't scale very well, and it's not even that great early game in my opinion. This gives you a damage aura, and this gives you splash attack, but nothing in this tier is very good. I get focused attack, get whatever you want, it doesn't honestly matter too much. At level 7, you get a few interesting ones. Impaling Swarm gives you 3 Zerglings. When the stun pops, 3 Zerglings spawn. And these are actually very tanky, they're great for jungling. So if you're focused on that, if you don't have like a Gazlo on your team who can deal with the jungle himself, this is a very good thing to get. It also gives you a little bit of extra distraction in team fights, which can be helpful. However, more often than not recently, I've been going for Battle Momentum. Like I said, she's very damage focused because damage actually gives her tankiness as well, so she's constantly auto-attacking and using her abilities on cooldown. So she will be building up that cooldown reduction, and then she will take good advantage of it. So I feel like Battle Momentum is probably the best option at this tier, but the Impaling Swarm is also quite good, and Block always gives you a little bit extra tankiness, always kind of worth considering if you really want to be hard to kill, but I would recommend Battle Momentum. Maelstrom, as we talked about, at level 10 as the go-to heroic. The Ultralisk I really feel is kind of underwhelming because you can't control it, or you have very limited control over it, otherwise it would be a pretty good option. But Maelstrom is just good damage, which again, good tankiness from that damage, nice AoE, and you can just set it and forget it. You don't really have to do anything about it. You just turn it on and it goes for you. Level 13, you get Lingering Essence. This is the key to her tankiness. It increases the duration of your shields, which allows it to stack and last much longer, which means you build up more and more, and there's no limit on how many shields you have, or how much shield you can have, at least as far as I can tell. So the duration is a huge, huge buff to that ability and makes you very hard to kill. And at level 16, a couple of options. Really, these two are the ones that you want to focus on. Blood for Blood, as always, a great active ability. Good for chasing, good for fighting, pretty much good for everything. But if you're up against people, because this is always better against tankier opponents because it's based on percentage of target enemy's maximum health. So if you're against a bunch of squishy opponents, this ability, Blade Torrent, actually increases the size of your W stun by 50%. It's a massive, massive increase. It turns team fights into very, very easy pickings for you. You can just E them in and then W, and you'll catch almost all of them in your stun all the time. So against squishier teams, you're going to want to focus on this ability more, but against tankier teams, Blood for Blood is, as always, fantastic. Then at levels 20, I almost always get Omega Storm. It increases the size of the Maelstrom, which means that it does more damage to more, well, not more damage, but it does damage to more heroes, which means that you are doing more damage, which means that more health is going towards your shields. And the other more important buff to this is that the amount of assimilation shields generated by Maelstrom increases by 100%, which means that twice the amount of shields are being built off your ultimate as at level 10, which is a huge, huge buff, again, to your survivability. It gets to the point where you basically just don't die as long as you're able to deal damage. So Omega Storm's a fantastic ultimate upgrade.
So it seems like for Kerrigan, we're going to build her for CC and damage, and we have to nab a few key traits so that she can become an effective tank. So that's great. Now that we've seen her setup, why don't we talk about how she works in game?
Yeah. She's another one of those heroes that's really great at every different point in the game. You just have to play her a little bit differently. Early game, she's almost pure initiator. She doesn't really get too much damage and therefore not too many shields early on. So she's not the biggest damage dealer or the biggest tank, but she has some of the best initiation in the game because her Ravage is such long range, and then she has 2 lockdown abilities on top of that. So use her to set up kills early on. And then once you get up to level 10, level 13, those are the 2 big ones where you get your ultimate and then you get the assimilation shields, the longer lasting shield. That's when you start to become a real team fight menace. You want to jump in there. You want to primal grasp everyone that you possibly can, stun as many people as you can. And then from there on out, you're just using your abilities on cooldown and auto attacking in the meantime. Always keep in mind that your tankiness comes from your damage output, both between your auto attacks and your abilities. So the more damage you're putting out, not only the more damage you're putting out, but the tankier you get. So just do as much as you can. Focus squishies as always, but you're not an assassin. You're not the person who's supposed to dive in there and get those kills. You just want to be in the team fight doing stuff. Your presence alone is very, very impactful. And to play against Kerrigan is very, very difficult because she's such a strong hero in so many ways. The biggest thing is that you want to kill her before she gets a lot of shields up if you can. But that's even kind of counterintuitive in itself because she's not an assassin or a damage dealer or super squishy in her own right. So it's kind of counterintuitive to have to try and focus her down. She's honestly just a very difficult hero to play against, but the biggest thing is if you can catch her out and minimize her impact on the fight, that's the best thing to do. But otherwise, she's just a very, very powerful hero, and you're just kind of going to have to outplay her.
And there you have it, guys. But remember, this is our best way to play, and we want to hear yours in the comments.
Be sure to head over to Greg's Twitch channel for more pro tips, and for everything Heroes of the Storm, stay tuned to IGN.